Okay. Good morning again. So I will go ahead and call our April meeting to order of the Advisory Board on Teacher Education and Licensure for the Virginia Department of Education. With that being said, hopefully each one of you have been enjoying your Easter holiday as we move forward to jumping into spring. And with that comes many, many changes in our lives, particularly that of a lot of pollen. So hopefully you're also not suffering with allergies, though I am right now. With that being said, I'm going to turn the agenda over to Mr. Rod Gilstrap for him to bring greetings as well as introduce guests.
Good morning, everybody. Before I get to greetings, I want to get you started on your lunch plan because we're the only ones in the conference center today, and we have a small group. We have a little bit different way they're handling lunch, where you write down what you want and they're going to bring it to us. So I'm going to walk around real quick, pass this out, and then I will continue with the greetings. You'll do it? Okay, that'd be great. Okay. While she's passing that out, I'll continue on. First, I want to just say this is our last meeting unless you all vote to have another meeting in May, which I don't think that'll be necessary. But this will be our last meeting for this cycle for this year. And our next meeting, we'll discuss meeting dates at some point within today's agenda. But if we go with the one that suggested, our next meeting would be September 23rd. So you do have a several month break in that time. But please don't feel like you can't reach out to me if you want to talk to me about ABTEL information or ABTEL business for the future. I'll be working as soon as today's meeting's over on adding a few more members to our team. We had a couple open slots this year, and we're working to try to fill those slots so that we have a full group. I'm not sure if we will use the same facility next year. That is still to be determined. Right now, we do have space at Old City Hall. If we want to utilize that, there does come issues with using Old City Hall, like parking issues, and hotels are close, but it's not in the same facility. There's not a hotel inside of Old City Hall. So I'm still looking at the options that we might have. We could end up being back here again, but that is something that is up for evaluation in the next month or two. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that it may not be here. But I do like this facility, and they do accommodate us quite well. I'd also like to make sure that I introduce a couple people that are here. We do have a few more people that will be showing up just a little bit later. Dr. Monica Osa, you're here. Thank you so much for being here. She's our Chev representative, and I appreciate you coming. And I know that as she was talking about, allergies are getting everybody, and so appreciate you still showing up. You helped push us over the line on a quorum also, so I appreciate you being here. Also, we do have Kelly Crawford here with Pearson. Thank you. She's one of our regulars, and appreciate you coming. And one of our guests that is presenting is somebody you all know very well, Mr. Malik McKinley from oh my God, Praxis or ETS. Sorry, I always want to say Praxis, the test, but ETS. And thank you for being here. And we're looking forward to hearing your presentation on social studies today. Do you want to do the approval of the agenda in the minutes? Okay. At this time, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'll be back shortly. I'll go ahead and hit the next slide for you. Maybe I won't. There it goes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. You do have a paper copy if you haven't been able to pick up one. There's one located in the rear of the room. Reflects what you also see on the screen. This does require a motion and a second. Motion's been made and properly seconded. Okay, we please go back, make sure that we indicate our name.
Ron Ramsey. Making the motion.
Shelby. Yeah.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Next up, we have the approval of the minutes from, and that says January ABTEL meeting.
Oh. That's not good.
No.
It actually probably says there.
Does.
Should amend it though.
Mm-hmm.
Not the June, March.
Dr. Cox?
Wait till we get to discussion. I was just gonna ask. On meeting minutes, is there any requirement that we have? Who is in attendance? Does that mean anything?
It helps to actually qualify the quorum and then who actually is attending the meeting. Mhm. So approval of the minutes does require a motion in a second. Name.
Andy Cox, CPA wise. Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded that we approve the minutes from the March meeting. Is there any discussion?
One adjustment out, this is Ron Ramsey. At the end, it shows that we adjourned at 11:48, but standing committees started at 11:15. So I think we need to shift that 11:15.
Duly noted.
That was the previous plan, but we were very active before we went to adjourn.
That's correct. A lot of discussion was being had at that time. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, like sign? Any abstentions? Motion passes. I'll call Mr. Gilstrap back up.
I believe everybody received an email that had public comment. I'm going to go ahead and just read the comment so that it can be into record, but you all should have already, I know that you all received it because some of you were talking about it earlier to me. So this is from Heather Ursano, and she says, "Good afternoon. My name is Heather Ursano, and I'm currently an educator in Giles County. I'm writing in regards to the state's method for receiving endorsement in theater arts. I'm wondering why Virginia does not accept the theater praxis 2 as a method for earning a license endorsement in this content area. The state is very adamant about teachers being qualified in their content area, but this area is one of the most difficult to attain. Currently, the VDOE requires anyone wishing to obtain an add-on endorsement in theater to earn 15 credits of coursework in theater. This is honestly impossible. Colleges do not offer these classes online or at a time that is feasible for those of us already teaching to take them. The options for coursework are limited to obtaining an MA or an MFA, all of which involves hefty price tags and or in-person instruction, which would mean leaving my job in order to attaining the degree. Offering the theater praxis as an option would make this endorsement much more obtainable for many educators, therefore allowing the arts to be more accessible in our schools. In addition, Virginia accepts the praxis in visual arts, vocal music, and instrumental music, all arts-related areas. Why leave theater out of this equation? The theater praxis is also accepted in 17 other states with varying cutoff scores. I'm going to just read the states. We have Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Delaware, Washington, D.C., Idaho, Maine, Maryland, Montana, Nevada, New Jersey, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, and Wisconsin. I would like to formally request that this test be accepted as a format to receive an add-on endorsement in theater arts. K-12, Heather Ursano, Narrows High School Theater Director. So that is the one public comment that we've received. And so I'm going to go ahead and move on. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Before I move on, I'll go ahead and acknowledge Dr. Hollins here. Thank you. She's going to be presenting in just a little bit. So in the past several meetings, I've given an update on where we are with House bills and Senate bills. There's only been one change since our last meeting. We are eagerly waiting for the final steps. And due to this meeting being April 1st and not April 9th or whatever, April 8th is the deadline for the governor to sign most of the bills that we are waiting for. Most specifically, House Bill 731 is the one that we probably have the most interest in on this board, but that has not been done yet. The only bill that has been signed off so far is 269, and it only marginally impacts us in this room. So when those do happen, I'll probably send out some correspondence to everybody to know what my next steps would be, since we do have a couple actions from this board that we decided to wait until we knew official word from the General Assembly. So that's part of my update. In addition to that, I wanted to add a couple things that are happening at VDOE right now that could impact us, just as points of reference. I'm not going to make a formal presentation of these, but I do want to get them in your ears and in your minds a little bit. One of them is the reading specialist micro-credential. Those of you that have been on the board for a few years probably remember working on that at different times of your time on the board. That is rapidly moving to a head. We have an approved curriculum for the micro-credential. We have a format that we are utilizing through Canvas that is being built as we speak. I think that module 1 of, I believe it's 7 modules, is already built, and they're testing it to make sure that it's working properly. Module 1 is about 45 pages of text. I believe module 4 is like 120 pages of text. So there's quite a lot of material. It is expected that it'll take a person who wants to go through this micro-credential approximately 45 hours of work to get through it. There are performance assessments associated with it, but beyond that, there are many reflective assignments. When I say that, I think it's 10 just for module 1. So there is a lot of work that goes into this. I know that there's been some concern that a current reading specialist is required to earn a master's degree and pass a praxis test in order to have that position, and that this would make that much easier. It will make it easier, but it will not make it super easy. It is definitely a robust course, and I am pleased at the progress of it so far. It looks like July 1st is the date that we're looking to have that fully available to teachers. And with the scoring that is required for it, there's hope that we can get up to maybe 1,000 teachers through the course if they were working intently by about the start of the school year. I think that that might be overshot because I just don't know that 1,000 teachers are going to try and do the course in that time frame, but that's what they're trying to staff and make sure that the system's able to handle that. Once the course goes into effect and we start having reading specialists hired through this method, there'll be some steps through the ABTEL board that we might want to look to evaluate the micro-credentials and evaluate this process, because I have a feeling if this process works well, there'll be other things. Maybe the theater arts would be another one, because then you could also have a performance assessment, which I think is part of the reason why there's a little bit leeriness about having just a test for theater arts. Even though there are other ones that are performance-based, I think that's probably one of the thoughts, is that we really need to have somebody do something beyond just an assessment. And so a micro-credential is a way to do that. So I think that computer science is one that we are also looking at. There's a STEM micro-credential that is in the works. I see some benefit in maybe gifted education going through a micro-credential system in the future, but these are all things that are just possibilities. I know that there is definitely interest at the General Assembly level to use micro-credentials in place of some of our current requirements, or to supplement them for short-term needs, which is what the reading specialist is intended for. It is not intended to replace the curriculum for a master's degree for a reading specialist. It is an attempt to bridge the gap between VLA and the high need for reading specialists that we would suddenly have. But it is only for a 5-year provisional. So there is an expectation at the end of that micro-credential time period, you would actually earn your master's degree and pass the praxis, so that you would be licensed in the traditional way. That's one thing I wanted to get out into your minds. Another thing I wanted to get out, and let me see if I can bring up the screen that has this information real quick. It'll be a little bit later in the slideshow. Okay, I know that's kind of small, but I wanted to get this out there to you also. Those of you that are in higher ed right now may already be aware of some of this, but federal regulations back in October of 2023 created some new steps for higher ed and higher ed programs when it comes to licensure of pretty much any occupation, and teachers definitely fall within this area. And what it actually does is it requires the higher ed agency that's offering these credits and pathways for a teacher to become licensed to verify that the program they have would meet the requirements for the person to actually receive a license. And that sounds probably obvious to us because we do that already in Virginia. But the twist on this is it is not necessarily for our in-state programs. It's for the out-of-state programs that are trying to offer a pathway to licensure through another state. It would also impact our programs for teachers that would be in other states. For instance, if UVA-wise offers a teacher education program, especially if it's an online one, that's even more specifically mentioned in this new guidance. If they have teachers in Tennessee that are taking the UVA-wise program, they have to verify that the program has to verify that their program will meet the requirements for the teachers in Tennessee. And if it does not, they must notify them of that so that they don't go all the way through that program and then get to the end and not meet the requirements in their own state. As you can probably imagine, this is going to create a lot of in and out flow of information. I've already had at least 4 communications to our office from other states wanting me to assist those programs with verifying whether or not their courses would actually lead to a license in Virginia. One of them's in Colorado at a private school. One of them's in Mississippi. And I know there's another one in Louisiana that reached out to me as well. I can't remember what the 4th one was. And those programs, in essence, sent me the courses that they offer and our question, would our program get a license in these areas in Virginia? Which if if you've been on the ABTEL board even this year, you know that that's an actually very complex question. And it's a question that changes over time. There could be changes in laws, changes in courses, changes in requirements and assessments. And so it's very difficult for Virginia to say that, yes, this course, this program that you offer meets our requirements without much more information. And I anticipate this becoming a pretty heavy lift. My go-to answer right now would be, does your state have reciprocal licensure agreement with Virginia? And if the answer is yes, I would say, then you should get the teacher to get licensed into your state and then apply through reciprocity, as opposed to try to match your program directly to our program. It's a much easier ask than to actually make sure that all the courses we ask for are the same courses that a college in another state is going to offer. So I just want to get that out there in front of you. This is, I think, since it goes into effect July 1st, I've got a lot of work to do on at least figuring out what's the appropriate answer to these colleges. I was on a webinar last night, and the webinar, one of the main questions was, what do state agencies do with this massive amount of requests? And their suggestion on the webinar was we create a website that clearly spells out our requirements and put it on the onus of that school to determine if they think they match that or not, which I think that is a much more doable. But even that in itself, we have over 51 areas that we can be licensed in. And that's not to mention that we also have provisional, professional, CP, superintendent license. So there's quite a few. The variety and possibilities are very high. On a report I did for the board on Thursday, I related to the board how many programs and what percentage of programs we have. And if you were to add up everything that we have, every possibility in Virginia, that was 2019 combinations. If you go with the license types and license areas. So for us to think that we would create a website with a breakdown of 2019 areas, that would be a large ask. I don't know that anybody would even want to go and look at that. I think we would want to put more basic information than that. So those are two areas that I wanted to report out to you all. One other thing I'm going to go ahead and report out now so that you get it in your head. We will be voting on it later. Is we also have to pick dates for next year. So I'm going to put them on the screen so that you can start thinking about them before we get to the vote on them. But that will be the end of my report, and then it'll be you, John, now next. So let me go ahead and pull up that for a minute so that everybody can see it. Oh, I should ask if anyone has questions. I'm sorry. I just wanted to zip along. Does anyone have any questions for anything that I've said so far? Yes, sir.
This is Belgar speaking. I want to ask a clarification on your comments regarding the micro credential for the reading specialist program. As I understood what you were saying, this micro credential, if successfully completed, would allow an individual to serve as a reading specialist in a school for up to a period of 5 years.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then within that 5-year time span, the expectation would be that the individual would obtain the master's level reading specialist degree, correct?
That would be the expectation.
And if they don't, then after that 5th year, they would no longer be able to be employed as the reading specialist?
Not without having some sort of requirement not met at the state level. Probably like on their IPAL report, they would have a knock on their accreditation. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And let me be even a little bit more specific with your question. So a person with a provisional license or a full license in any area is eligible to do this micro-credential. The micro-credential allows for a provisional endorsement, which we don't generally do. We don't have provisional endorsements. Generally, I think it's actually 100% more than generally. If you have an endorsement on your license, it is forever. For as long as you have a license, and if you add a license later, it goes back onto your license. This is one of the very few areas where you would have what we would call a provisional endorsement. And the term provisional means it is a non-renewable. And so at the end of that 5 years, unless something else changes with the law to allow it to be renewable or allows for extensions, that would be the end of that time on that provisional endorsement.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, let me go to the calendar thing. I'll leave that up for a second and let you all take a look at those dates. You're welcome to write them down if you want to have more time to think about them while we're doing the other presentations. That can be part of the discussion. I'm going to go ahead and take that down and then prepare Jonelle's presentation for her. Yep.
Can we talk about the calendar?
We will have, we actually have it on the, it's an action item. So that'll be when you'd want to have more discussion. I just didn't want you to have that at the last second. I want to give you a little upfront time. Let's see.
Good morning. Today I will be presenting the critical teaching shortage areas for 2024, 2025. Is that right? Yes, that is correct. According to the regulations, DOE, Virginia Department of Education, requires that we report annually to the General Assembly on the critical teaching shortage areas in Virginia. In response to that requirement, data is obtained from the positions and exit collection, which this is the third year that we will be using this data in order to identify the critical shortage areas. To determine the qualifications, so this each school division superintendents in 2022 to determine qualifications for teachers and administrators submit information in order to create the critical shortage areas. Information is requested on the survey based on school data reports. The data is used to determine those critical shortage areas.
I remember when we had this problem that one time. All right, give me one more second. Showing it. Just not showing it up there. I just was out the words for a second.
Well, for whatever it's worth, you do have a display on this table laptop.
Yeah, it's showing everybody, but not you all.
That's okay. I have it on my computer.
I'm going to continue to try to get this one.
Okay. So the regulations governing the determination of the critical shortage areas establish criteria for the shortage areas. Specifically in Virginia, critical shortage may be defined in two ways. Shortages by subject matter as designated from the top 10 academic disciplines identified in the annual survey of school divisions, or a school personnel vacancy for which the school division receives 3 or fewer qualified candidates for a position. Determination of the critical shortages is specifically teaching endorsement areas. Their rankings are dependent on the method of calculation used, such as specific shortage areas identified will differ among school divisions and statewide analysts of subject area designations. The top 10 critical shortage areas for the 2024-25 year are elementary education, special education, pre-K through 12, middle education, grades 6 through 8, English secondary, science secondary, career and technical education, mathematics grades 6 through 12, including Algebra 1, history and social sciences secondary, foreign language pre-K to 12, and school counseling pre-K to 12. This information is just for information. There's no action that needs to be taken on this.
Mr. McKinley, I'm trying to bring yours up. Is he still over there? Okay, that's good. That's fine. Give me time. Funny that it's showing that. That's not even what is on the screen.
It's going between channels, like it's
Mhm.
channel one, channel.
Don't want to pull out all the way off. Can you all see on that screen what's actually on my, or is it showing the same thing up there? So weird.
It's just-
John L, I'm going to pull off of the presentation. I'm going to pull out of Zoom and go back into Zoom. Do you think that'll work? Well, it's this that's not connecting, even though it's connected.
About the same.
All right. Well,
So,
okay.
hello, we're having just some few minor technical difficulties. We're going to take at least a 10-minute break. So it's currently 10 minutes till 10. We'll resume back at approximately 10:05. Yes. So please enjoy yourselves.
If you haven't already filled out your food request,
Ladies and gentlemen, it's approximately 10:03, about to be 10:04. We'll go ahead and reconvene from our recess. At this time, we'll have a presentation by Mr. Malik McKinley, Director of Client Relations, Professional Educator Programs, Office of Teacher Licensure Certification, Student and Teacher Assessment Division, for the Educational Testing Service.
Good morning. So we will walk through real quickly similar information to what we provided I believe it was last month or maybe the month before. Last month? Okay, all the months are running together here. So what we talked about before was just providing a little background on ETS, praxis tests in general, test development process, standard setting process. I don't think anyone is new here. So can we just kind of skip by those slides? If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask a question or so. So we'll move right into information on social studies. This is test number 5581. We did share the draft study companion for this exam. The full study companion will be out in July of this year. We also shared a document that provided you with overall high-level changes between 5081 and 5581. We also provided a multi-state standard setting study, so you do have all that material electronically. But overall, in terms of test summary changes here, as you can see here with the redesign, created as a redesign of the existing 5081 social studies content knowledge assessment. We modernized the approach, content, and used the latest standards in a number of fields related to social studies. Includes content that is more representative of the experience of diverse groups, more recent historical events, and movements. Better aligns, as I mentioned, to the newest standards. The structure here. Increased items from 120 to 140, multiple choice questions. Time moved from 120 minutes to 150 minutes. The assessment no longer includes a behavioral science section. You'll see with the weightings how, and this was in the document that you already have, you'll see some of the weightings changed from the current test to the new test. The civic section assesses more knowledge about active civic participation. Before we get to the weightings, this is just a quick review of some of the standards that built this exam. So we're making sure that we align, as you recall from our test development process, we start with the standards and then build out knowledge and skills statements, then build out the test blueprint, which is what you eventually will see in the study companion test at a glance document. So overall changes here with the weighting, as you can see, we increased United States history, world history increased just slightly. Geography and was decreased, civics increased. This is all material that you have in front of you just to kind of give you a side-by-side of what the test will look like this fall. So overall, just the highlighting here of the overall number of questions, the format of the exam. This is computer delivered, keeping in mind that we can offer it in a paper form if there is a documented accommodation needed. You can see the content categories with the number of questions as well as the percentage of the exam. And this is considered a multiple choice / selected response question, which means you may have 4 or 5 bubble choices. And then you also may have some questions where you have to drag and drop or enter information. So there are different ways that we're using technologically enhanced questions in praxis exams. So just giving you a quick preview here. Within the test at a glance, it's 3 to 4 pages within the study companion, or maybe 4 to 5 pages within the study companion. There's always those overarching topics that are broken down for anyone that actually works closely with teacher candidates. Within our study companion, we try to break down as much information as possible. So just giving you a quick screenshot of what that looks like. In terms of the multi-state standard setting information, it took place in February 2024. We tried to get the report out as quickly as possible. We did miss the window for the March meeting, which is why we're discussing this separately from the previous 2 exams. There are 11 states that participated in this study, and also Washington, D.C. Neighboring states or states in the general area around Virginia include Delaware, Kentucky, Maryland, North Carolina, New Jersey, Washington, D.C. There were a total of 14 panelists. All of this is in your multi-state study. The passing scores is 74 out of 120 raw score points, which was converted to a 153 on our 100 to 200 point scale. Just a quick note here in red, as you see with 5081, sometimes we have questions about who currently uses that exam and pass rate data. There are currently 31 states and territories that use 5081, which is the current test Virginia uses. Your score is a 161 currently. There are 2 states above that cut score, including Connecticut and Rhode Island, but all others are at a below Virginia score. In terms of data, there have been about 22,000 candidates for the last 5 years or so that have taken this across the nation. And as you can see, the numbers for the Department of Education here in Virginia at 2,800, and the numbers for those who are in prep programs here in Virginia at 2,100 or so. Number passing and percent passing, almost 20 points across Virginia, 20 points above the national average. So back to the multi-state for 5581, similar to the last 2 tests that we talked about, looking at the recommended passing score. For this exam, it is 74 out of 120 questions, which converts to a 153. So the recommendation, again, not from ETS, but from a national panel of 14 panelists, 11 states, decided that a 153 would be the appropriate score point for this exam as we begin to open it up to the marketplace in this fall. Any questions?
Check.
Thank you, Kim Halterman, and I have kind of a comment, kind of a question. Noticing the removal of the behavioral science section and not looking at our licensure crosswalk right at the moment, but I do think we're relying on individuals with this license to teach a lot of psychology, sociology, et cetera, courses around Virginia. So just would love to hear a little bit more about that. Obviously, trust our principals to assign the right people to teach classes, but would love to know a little bit more about that decision.
You know what? Let me, in a break, I will reach out directly to our test developer to get a response to that question, and then I will come back to you in just a moment.
Sounds good. No problem.
Okay.
I had the same question.
It's Ron Ramsey. Just, you had mentioned part of the new test, it increased the knowledge base for active civic participation. Could you explain that a little bit to me as to what that means exactly?
So I will follow up with my AD representative and get an answer to that question as well.
Thank you.
Okay. So far, increase in civic, the civic section is important, as well as why behavioral science was fully removed.
Malik, the recommended passing score that you had up on the slide at the end set for 120 questions. But didn't the new tests increase to 140 questions?
So in all of Praxis exams, we have field questions or pre-test questions that we include in official exams. They are not scored, but we are testing them out to make sure that they are functioning in the correct manner.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any more questions?
Okay, so I have two questions on content, civics, and behavioral science. And then when I have that answer, would you mind if I just shared it at some point during this meeting?
That'd be great. I don't know if they're going to want to wait for those answers before they vote.
Yeah.
So we might adjust our schedule slightly to give you a little more time.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
We don't work this well, button. Okay.
So ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Dr. Samantha Hollins, who is the Assistant Superintendent for the Department of Special Populations, the Board of Education. We are so glad to have you this morning and super excited. Please join me. Welcome.
So nice to get some applause on a Monday morning. Come and stand with you guys instead of being at the office. So good morning. Thank you all so much for having me. I'm Sam Hollins, and I am a colleague of Rob's at the Department of Education, where I serve in the Department of Special Populations as Assistant Superintendent. And it's really exciting to be here with you today. This is actually probably only the second time I've come to ABTEL in my now 12, almost 13-year career at the department. So it's always a pleasure to speak to an advisory board that is doing such important work, particularly focused on our educators. And we're really excited as part of the team from Special Populations to share with you some exciting work today. So I am going to tee everything up, and then I'm going to introduce you to a couple of my colleagues who are joining me today so you can really hear about some of the great work we're doing at the department to mechanize many of the things that you all are talking about. And just today, in hearing some of your discussion, it's obvious that you all are focused on improving the structure and supports necessary to make sure that Virginia continues to be a leader in maintaining qualified staff and really focusing on ensuring that every child in every classroom has a well-qualified teacher in order to give instruction. And that's incredibly important. So while sometimes the day-to-day might get lost in what you all do, I want to assure you that it's folks like our team that take the work from here and really deploy it into schools, into divisions. And that's such a joy for us because our closest work is with folks like Dr. Halterman, our division superintendents, for us, our division directors with special education and student services, and most importantly, our teachers. And so the work that you all do really helps to set us up for the work that we do. In special populations, we have a couple of different functions. Obviously, we focus on special education and students that are the most vulnerable populations. And so we really consider ourselves experts in reaching out to instruct and intervene in students who really have the highest degree of need. Obviously, a lot of the work we do are in things like dispute resolution and family engagement, monitoring, data, fiscal. But the work that we're going to talk about today is something I'm incredibly proud of. We really try and focus on not just kind of the policy piece, but also the implementation. And the folks that I have with me today really represent what I consider our R&D work in the Department of Special Populations, right? How are we mechanizing what we're doing? Because oftentimes as professional educators, we know what to do. We've studied the research. We've, in our case, devoted our professional lives to getting better at learning what it is we need to do. But oftentimes how we do that, particularly in partnership with our local school divisions, is the greatest challenge. And so today we're going to talk a lot about how we do this work and the benefits that we're seeing throughout Virginia, thanks to our collaboration. I'm going to introduce my team members, and we're going to kind of take a little bit of a special populations approach to this, meaning a little bit informal. And so please feel free to pause us and ask questions or ask more. The work that we're talking about today is really how we strategically align our department's work and our partnerships with the field. We consider this work to be something that is creating capacity for change in local school divisions. And the two folks that I have with me today are such great examples. You'll see Mr. Michael Gregory, who's our coordinator for multi-tiered systems of support in the department. You'll also see Dr. Aaron Sturgis, who is our special ed MTSS specialist. And let me just tell you, I really am only here to support them because they have both dedicated so much of their professional work to what we're going to be talking about today. Michael will talk to you a little bit about how he came into this work and his history as a school social worker, where I first had the pleasure to meet him out in the field, and then it was exciting to have him join us at the department. And Dr. Aaron Sturgis was somebody who we did some work as she was pursuing her doctorate with VCU, and so she'll talk about how she's expanding those partnerships. Now, Michael doesn't have a doctorate, but he's got street credibility because I think his total right now, Michael, and correct me if I'm wrong, as you make your way up here, is about $34.25 million in competitive grant funding that he has led the charge on and bringing to the state of Virginia. That's funding to support the work we're going to be talking to you about, but most importantly, that's funding to support positions in local school divisions for some of those critical teaching shortage areas that you all heard just a little bit earlier from Jonelle. So with that, I'll have Michael come up and join us and talk a little bit more about our approach to this work. Michael?
Thanks for that introduction, Sam, and nice to be here with you all today. I will talk a little bit about, I hadn't planned on talking about my background, but I am a school social worker by training and spent some time in school divisions here in Virginia and out in Iowa before I came here. And so you'll hear me talk a little bit about, or hear us talk a little bit about our school-based mental health efforts and in recruitment and retention. And certainly some of that work, or some of my background as a school social worker, led me into this particular position and on this particular path. We're really excited to talk about our Creating Capacity for Change collaborative. It is led by VDOE. It includes all of our MTSS work, both our internal VDOE resources and our external with our VTSS partners, Virginia Tiered Systems of Supports. If you're unfamiliar, these are our efforts to support the field in implementation of MTSS, but these are also all of our grant-funded efforts that Sam mentioned for recruitment and retention, all founded and worked through the lens of MTSS. So basically at our core, this collaborative is really demonstrating all of our efforts in supporting scaling implementation science and MTSS through our statewide technical assistance collaborative. And so I won't take the time to go through all of our partners. We have partners with 7 or 8 institutions of higher education, a number of family engagement partners, and the list goes on and on. So we really have a pretty wide network. We have approximately 40 coaches who support the field. And so we're really excited to be able to move these particular efforts, not only to support implementation of MTSS, but with a focus over the last 4 to 5 years on recruitment and retention in these critical need areas. So I won't necessarily bore you too much in talking about our kind of the foundation of our work, but I will talk about our core components, which is the foundation of all of our work. It's through this approach that MTSS allows states and divisions to use a framework founded on these core components while allowing flexibility to make unique decisions based on their own data and individual needs. And it's our work to help support school divisions in building those systems. So the core components are the foundation of our systemic approach to recruitment and retention efforts. And development of those systems at the state and local levels has been the main focus of the Department of Special Populations over the last 4 or 5 years to align our efforts to support divisions, specifically with recruitment and retention through the development of comprehensive recruitment and retention plans through MTSS. And I'm going to have Dr. Sturgis come up and talk to you in a little bit. Not quite. Sorry. It's not your slide yet. In a little bit to talk more specifically about the grant activities that we have embarked on across multiple grant funding streams to be able to support school divisions and staff across Virginia. And so when we talk about our systemic approach, we approach this alignment and support to divisions through our cascade of support. You'll see it's on as you look at it, the right-hand side of your screen. And you'll see it from the state all the way down to the students in our cascading model of support. There are communication loops built in to this particular cascade so that at each level, not only are we putting out information, but we're receiving feedback on how that information, on how our activities are actually being implemented and whether the data is showing that they are successful or where we need to make changes. The other thing you see up there is our implementation logic. So we support our divisions using our implementation logic with data throughout the process to be able to make those decisions. Like I talked about, systems to support educators and practices to be able to support students. And so as you hear me talk about all of our grant efforts, these are some of the foundations that those are built on. And certainly our teaming structures are very important to be able to receive feedback to make real-time changes. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about alignment of efforts for a very brief moment. And the one thing I want you to hear from me as I talk about alignment is that, I think oftentimes when we talk about alignment, it's like everybody wants to align everything all at one time. And what we talk to school divisions about and what we practice as we preach is that you have to be purposeful in your alignment. And through Virginia's efforts in MTSS, at least from what I've heard, we are one of the first states in the nation to actually have a solid definition of what alignment means and what it means in our practice. And so I'm not going to read it to you, but it is up there on the slide. And like I said, I think the biggest takeaway here is that as we support school divisions in our efforts around comprehensive recruitment and retention in these specified areas that we're going to talk to you about, our messaging to them and our messaging internally for ourselves is that purposeful alignment is the way to go. There are times when it makes sense to align your efforts, but there are also times where you try to do a little bit too much and it bogs down your system so you're not seeing the change that you want in the time that you're looking for. And so now we'll get to the fun part that Sam talked about. We have been very successful in our grant writing efforts. And so you'll see since 2019, we have received a U.S. Department of Education grant every year. Each one of these based in recruitment and retention through that lens of MTSS. You'll see a number of grants in school-based mental health. And that personal development grant is looking at recruitment and retention for special education teachers through the lens of MTSS. And so to Sam's point, we have since 2019, 2018, which I didn't show on there because it's a different funding stream, but we have pulled in about $34.25 million to be able to support the field. And we continue to plan to be able to do that to sustain these efforts in the long term. So as we talked about that, as I talked about some of these grants, we began in 2019 with our mental health professional development grant. As you're looking at this particular slide, these are our annual awards that we get from each one of these grants. Each one is a 5-year discretionary grant award from the U.S. Department of Education. So this is how much funding we're pulling in annually to support implementation efforts of MTSS, but then also embedded in that is our efforts towards recruitment and retention of special education teachers on a smaller scale, but also the school-based mental health providers. We're going to highlight, you'll see the 3 highlighted. These are our 3 most recent. We're going to highlight those with Dr. Sturgis today, but just wanted to be able, I'm actually going to pop back a slide, wanted to be able to take you all on a quick journey. So that mental health professional development grant back in 2019 was a pipeline grant. So they looked particularly at how to get students of programs into high need LEAs. And so based on information that we gleaned from that, we had an opportunity to write for our first school-based mental health grant. And wrapped into that, the main focus of that was funneling money to school divisions to be able to actively hire school-based mental health professionals, but we built out the Student Services Career and Learning Center, which is a comprehensive web page that allows school divisions to post any school-based mental health vacancy in one central location. To Sam's point, I am a school social worker by training, and so I came from Iowa. And what I found very challenging was to be able to navigate each school division's website, navigate their HR, and so on and so forth. And so one of our big activities of that particular grant was to develop the Career and Learning Center. We found it wildly successful, but we did notice that there are some holes. One of those being, to Sam's point, implementation. And so we were funneling money to school divisions and building professional development, asynchronous professional development, and also that career center where you can find vacancies. But then school divisions weren't necessarily being supported in how to implement a comprehensive plan and approach to be able to actively retain everybody once you receive those funds. And then how, sustainability of the funding, but then also to keep the people in their positions. And so that's really the lens that we went through for our personnel development grant, our school-based mental health grant in 2022, and our state personnel development grant in 2023. I will go ahead. I'm actually going to pop out of order a little bit, Dr. Sturgis, and talk briefly about our state personnel development grant, because I think that I'd like her to spend a little bit more time on those specific recruitment and retention grants, our school-based mental health and our personnel development grant. Our state personnel development grant has a total of approximately $10 million of funding over, this is the first year, so we've only had it for a few months, over the next 5 years. This is kind of holistically looking at supporting school divisions with selecting and implementing evidence-based practices and creating personnel development programs to be able to support and build capacity at the division level, and then for us at the state level with our coaches to be able to help school divisions do that. And so while you're not hearing me talk specifically about recruitment and retention, building capacity and having that highly qualified staff is a key element of recruitment and retention. And so I wanted to mention that we are tying all of our state personnel development grant activities to the activities of our previous 2 grants, the school-based mental health grant and the personnel development grant. But I'm going to flip it over to Dr. Sturgis to talk a little bit more specifically about those grants in particular.
Coming up the correct time now. I'm ready. I'm Erin Sturgis. I'm really excited to talk to you all today. I actually started as a special education teacher who entered the profession through an alternate licensure track in 2007. And I've had the opportunity to teach in private day, K through 12, career and technical education, and in the adult jail facility prior to becoming a building administrator and getting to build an online school during COVID. So I've had some pretty unique experiences, but across all of them have really identified that probably 90% of the skills I needed in special education were the same across settings. And how I got access to those skills varied greatly from those around me, depending on how we entered the profession. And so I'm very passionate about how we can continue to support special education teachers, pre-service all the way through in-service. And so the personnel development grant aligns beautifully with that, because our focus is on working with an Institute of Higher Education to incorporate some evidence-based instruction into their pre-service program, but then also to concurrently work with a school division on how they're retaining special education teachers using a multi-tiered system of support framework, right? So we know that tiered intervention, data-driven decision-making, those too, but that's not always how we apply them. So we've been partnering with Chesapeake Public Schools, which is a large school division, to work with them on building the skill set and capacity of the administrators at the building and division level to be able to review teacher-specific data, to look at retention, they're doing stay interviews and exit interviews to kind of find out what are the things that the teachers in your division need in order to be successful and to stay. They've also found out very quickly, something I think many of us know, is that the needs vary greatly. And a lot of that also depends on how people came into the field. Not all of them even coming into the field through Virginia licensure initially, because there's also a huge military connection in that area, right? So the needs of the teachers are very different. So we've been working with them on a cohort model where they're creating kind of tier 1 instruction to really support best teaching practices for a very specific group of teachers that were identified because they have indicators of teachers who are more likely to leave either during the school year or are less likely to renew their contract at the end of the school year. And they have been building that up and increasing the size of the cohorts they're working with, while concurrently working with administrators on how to provide tiered supports to all teachers in the division, not just the ones who are participating in the cohort. And I'll share some data in a moment, but it's been very, very successful. And what's probably the most exciting is that it has expanded far beyond their special education department. They have human resources involved, their Office of Instruction outside of special education, who are all embedding this work into the VTSS, MTSS work that they do as a division, and it's become part of their normal practice, which is the goal of all of our grants, is how do we increase scale so that we can support all divisions across the state. Similarly, our school-based mental health grant 2022, to Michael's point, built upon some prior grant work that was done in the state. And we said, hey, we have a lot of good structures in place, but how are we actually getting into divisions and working with not just the school mental health professionals who are trying to recruit and retain, but again, how are we working with division and building level leadership to help them understand how to best recruit and retain those school mental health professionals in their division? Because in addition to having people, if we have people, but we're not using them as effectively as we can, then we're not impacting student outcomes, right? So if I hire 5 new school psychologists, if they're out there, we'd love to hire you, right? But if we hire those 5 school psychologists and we don't have a real clear plan for what that service delivery model looks like, or if we're using them for non-mental health roles, administrative tasks, then even increasing that number is not going to allow us to be as efficient in increasing student access to mental health support. So same concept of how are we building the capacity of our leadership to be able to apply this kind of MTSS approach from the staff level, in this case, all the way down to the student level, because we're looking at how we're providing those tiered supports and collecting data to support staff and concurrently training them to do the same thing with the students in their division, kind of bringing it full circle. We've had really positive feedback. In addition to the work that we're doing directly with divisions, we are partnering with an institution to provide a subsidized, free licensure pathway for school social workers who are provisionally licensed, so that we're concurrently working on retaining those that we have and building the pipeline to help with retention efforts. So I will not read these to you, but this is kind of a highlight of the recruitment and retention specific grants that we're doing, especially the two I just kind of talked about. And you'll see that we're increasing the scale and the number of LEAs, the number of institutes of higher education that we're partnering with the goal of continuing to expand, scale, and sustain that work. And what's really great is we're able to identify what's working and what's not working, not just from our perspective, but from the perspective of the LEAs that we're partnering with and the actual special education teachers and school mental health professionals. And we're able to kind of modify what our supports look like to be able to have the most impact. Because I think we can all recognize there's sometimes like a research to practice discrepancy. It's really hard for people who are in the field doing the work to be able to take the time to kind of change that model and that approach. So that's kind of our role in this, is to help them do that along with our technical assistance partners. So with our personnel development grant, again, the cohorts that we're supporting are teachers who are identified because they have indicators that indicate they are more likely to leave during the school year or to not renew their license. Last year, 94.7% of those teachers renewed their contract. So that was a huge excitement, especially in a large division. This year, we are entering year 2 of our school-based mental health 2022 grant. During the first year of implementation, as a result of modifications that were made, 42,000 students received access to mental health support as a result of the work. And those divisions were able to establish data collection systems to identify that and be able to make targeted changes to continue to meet those needs. And that at the bottom is our group of all of the division leadership right now who are participating in some of that technical assistance work. I know Dr. Hollins also referenced that my kind of first interaction with the Department of Education was when I was completing my doctoral work at VCU. And that is some of the work that was done as a result of that partnership was the foundation for our school-based mental health 2022 grant. And we recognize that that continued partnership will benefit both the university and us and students and staff across Virginia. So we are continuing to partner with VCU. We wrote another request for assistance from them to partner with a doctoral team this year. We also partner with the Metropolitan Education Research Consortium. I'm a co-PI on a number of research projects there, where we're doing literature reviews and data collection across the state focused on recruitment and retention efforts and student and staff mental health needs across Virginia. And so again, that's allowing us as a state agency to be able to get high quality research and current context to be able to impact the work that we're doing and support LEAs so that they don't have to go seek out that same level. And I will turn it back over to Dr. Hollins.
Thanks so much, Erin. I hope you guys see by some of those examples the work that we're doing to coalesce at the department, and obviously our work with other offices, one of which you see in full stature here. You know, teacher ed and licensure is such an important partner in that work. Our Office of Behavioral Health and Wellness is completely integral to the work we're doing, and also our partners in instruction. And so we really want to model that strategic collaboration that we're then helping to support LEAs with. But I think what you heard through Michael and Erin's work, it's not just about what we can give, it's how can we build the capacity of school divisions out there to partner and strengthen each other, to work within their regional partnerships, to work across the state. And we've seen already some really great success from that, not just in the divisions we're working with, but we also have a track record now of Virginia school divisions going out and seeking these competitive grants, which there are versions of for local education agencies, and being successful in those applications. And so we work to cultivate that sense of research and development and help to support our school divisions and what that looks like for them. As you can imagine, this is just a snippet of some of the work that we do, but I just want to reframe a couple of the other priority projects that we're working on. Obviously, we work very closely with our federal partners at the office at the U.S. Department of Education, particularly the Office of Special Ed Programs and Elementary and Secondary Education. Obviously, a lot of the technical assistance and support we receive from them is how we structure our work and really using that to make sure that we're competitive for those grant opportunities, as well as thinking about the fact that oftentimes we're really good once we have folks, but how do we deal with those pipeline issues? How do we attract folks into the field of education? And so we continue those partnerships with our institutes of higher education, not just on when folks are in that kind of pre-service pathway, but how can we gain interest in folks like our high school students and, you know, the individuals that are working and sitting in classrooms now. And so that's been really something that I think we're shifting on, doing a little bit more and really focusing on that attract component. Obviously, as part of this work, it's incumbent upon the department itself to provide strategic professional development and technical assistance. And I'm sure that you all are well aware of two of our more lengthy and storied ways to do this, both through our Journey into Teaching Academy and our Special Education Teacher Support Academy. If you ever want to get out in the field and see a little bit of this, we would love to have you. We're actually gearing up as we speak for both SETSA and our Content Teaching Academies this summer. But it is life-changing to sit and talk with these special education teachers that tell us this is the most beneficial professional development I get, and it sustains me throughout the year. And that's important because this isn't just a sit and get. It's really about helping school divisions to structure the support necessary to make sure they're maintaining those individuals. As you can imagine, professional development is really helpful, but it's even more helpful to sustain that with mentorship, support, collegial support, relationships with administrators and other teachers. And that's what projects like these focus on. As you can see from the team that I brought with me today, we are not done yet, and we continue to look for ways to innovate and think about how we can do things differently, improve our work. And if something is not working for us, we're very serious about our evaluation. And so we will stop and take stock of things. We collect data, really thinking about how we can be strategic and nimble about the choices that we're making. And so hopefully you all see that as a reflection of our commitment to make sure that Virginia is a leader in this area. You heard from Janelle a little bit earlier about critical teaching shortage areas, and that data is really stark. I will tell you that I work very closely with the state directors of special education in other states. It can and will get worse. Some of these other states are dealing with shortages that they would wish to have Virginia's. And so how do we continue to not just stave off any issues, but how can we continue to grow and be a leader out there for the field? And so you'll see we have a couple of promising next steps that we're working on, and we're really excited to be able to offer any information to you all that this presentation has provided. And I work really closely with Rob, and so we're always happy to provide information and support and examples of the work that you are doing being used to support school divisions and, most importantly, our students and our teachers. So I will pause here. Here's my contact information. We love to talk about ourselves, in case you haven't noticed, in special populations. We actually have our own Twitter that we put out a lot of information that we really seek to make sure our families have that front-facing information. Parental engagement is incredibly important to the department and the administration, but it also provides some really great ways to interact with the work that we're doing. So I hope you'll take down that information. If myself, Michael, or Aaron can be of any additional support, please don't hesitate to contact me directly. I'll pause there for any questions, and I'm sure Rob will be making his way back up to transition you guys to your next piece.
Ron Ramsey, just related to your retention work, are you seeing patterns with those that are leaving the profession?
We are. That's a great question. And I know you all were talking a little bit earlier about the position and exits data collection. That data is beginning to really kind of take shape and be useful to us. But as you heard Aaron talk about, our partnerships with specific local school divisions have really proved to be more fruitful to us in this stage of work, to know what those reasons are, not just for exiting the profession, but for maintaining year to year. And so figuring out what are the crux of those relationships, the most important components of a support program to help folks not just enter into the profession, but stay. That's probably been the most useful information and data we've been able to collect, is really that close partnership with school divisions.
Andy Cox from UVA Wise, and thank you. This is absolutely wonderful, and I love the push, and I love the idea that the funding dollars have been there. That's fantastic. One of the things I worry about is that whenever I go into schools, mental health is mentioned to me over and over and over again, and I worry that, you know, what happens when some of these grant funds run out? Should maybe the state be considering putting this as part of their own budget? But anyhow, my question is about, and maybe I miss, is disbursement. So do individual school districts have to apply for these types of funds, or is it per student? How are funds dispersed and schools eligible for such things?
Yeah, both great points and great questions. So to the first, you're absolutely correct. You know, some of the work that we do, and you heard Aaron touch on it briefly, is about creating sustainability. I think sometimes in education, especially those of us who were around in 2007, we're a little nervous about competitive funds, right? I think my team has proven that even though you might be nervous about it, there's a way to demonstrate sustainability once we help school divisions create that capacity to do so. But I will piggyback and say, yes, it would be lovely to see more state support for this kind of work. And I went over it pretty quickly, but some of the things that we're seeing create some opportunities for sustainability outside of what we've discussed today, particularly expansion of school-based health and Medicaid is something that we're working very closely with our colleagues in the Office of Behavioral Health and Wellness on. They also collaborate with the State Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services that did receive state money to work in this area. And so the departments, the sister agencies work really closely to help solve that problem as much as we're able to. But I think your, phrasing of the importance is incredible. The only things we seem to hear when we're out in the field is school-based mental health and recruitment and retention. And so you see how that's threading into the work that we're doing. As far as the second question about school divisions being eligible, it really depends on the situation. And so for the ones that we are authoring grants for, we typically have to adhere to very strict criteria and the partners that we're bringing on to. So we look for school divisions that don't have sustainability, don't have support, and meet those qualifications. And so we really try to space that out. Dr. Coons, if you all have interacted with her, is a huge proponent for ensuring that we reach every corner of the Commonwealth. And so we really try and be mindful about the students that we're serving around the regions as well. And so each opportunity provides a new chance for us to work with school divisions that need help in this area. And so we bring them into that. You also heard me mention that we've created some support for school divisions going after their own funding. And so one of the pieces that we work on, I think Michael's team particularly is so good at this, is helping school divisions feel confident and want to go after their own grant opportunities, which really allows them to customize that work. And most recently, we saw the school divisions of Fairfax, Lynchburg, and Campbell, Newport News, be awarded direct grants from the U.S. Department of Education without our help. Now, we continue to work with them, but that's creating sustainability for school divisions to have the power in their hands to go after this. And Virginia was one of the states with the most LEAs that were awarded. So. Yeah, so the question is, do we use a formula or how do we create that kind of understanding on what we need to do? It really depends on the grant. Many of these grants come with tags that require us to work with certain partners, school divisions that have an increased level of military connected students, school divisions that have an increased population of students who take advantage of free and reduced lunch. We take that criteria and then we Virginiaize it a little bit. We look at regional representation. We handle a lot of calls, whether it's from stakeholders, whether it's from school division leadership that are seeking opportunities and resources. And so the team keeps really this kind of master matrix that allows us to take advantage of who's ready, who wants to, and maybe who we've worked with on another project that's now ready for the next step. And Michael showed you that journey. That journey is incredibly important because our school divisions, some of them are on that road already and they're just chucking right along. Some school divisions need an on-ramp to get on there. And so that's hopefully the opportunity that we're providing in our partnerships with them. And so we'll be able to talk a little bit more to maybe at another meeting about some of the specific school divisions we're working with and how that has really benefited both them and their regions. Thank you guys. All right, looks like that's it. Rob, thank you so much.
Samantha, I just want to also say that we're doing partnerships within VDOE to attack certain specific areas, even together. Special education, early childhood, and licensure are all looking at the early childhood requirements for licensure, which is a very difficult pathway right now. It's almost an impossible pathway. So we're looking at within the agency communicating around with other departments to try to make sure that we're addressing special populations that are overlooked at times. Thank you so much, Samantha. Do you want to present what you had before we go into the the official part of, whether or not we're going to receive them or not. You want to go ahead and come back? Okay. See if I can. You need to present something? Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna. I took that off.
So we had two good questions early on. I don't want to. About behavioral science and also about civics. So we'll just deal with the first question. I reached out to our assessment development staff, folks that have worked on this exam and other iterations of this test. And I think the best way to communicate this to you is just to read what was shared with me. So around behavioral sciences, first, the original domain, encompassing psychology, sociology, anthropology, was condensed into a very small content category. This led to a challenge in making meaningful skills and knowledge claims about these disciplines due to the limited number of items available. However, with the expansion of the civics, US, and world history sections, we can now address the more relevant interdisciplinary functions of sociology and anthropology in context. This change eliminates the need for test takers to unduly over-prepare for these distinct categories, ensuring a more balanced and comprehensive assessment structure that aligns with a modern approach to social studies education. The second note here is with input from our DAC and NAC, our Development Advisory Committee, and also our National Advisory Committee, it was clear that some aspects of psychology and sociology sections did not necessarily reflect the generalist secondary social studies experience. Teachers more often instruct this content in single semester elective courses for which the praxis, psychology, and sociology assessments are better suited. The concern for not being able to support the claim that a teacher could teach a full semester of psychology or sociology based on these few items assessing their knowledge was popular among the participants from the DAC, the NAC, as well as the multi-state standard setting study. So that is what our initial response is from assessment development. Do you have any follow-up questions? Because I can certainly continue to correspond with my colleague back in Princeton.
I think that information is very helpful.
Okay.
I think my question then, or my just thought, I think it's a thought, goes back to our current licensure crosswalk in Virginia, because my understanding is our individuals with history, social sciences licensure are allowed to teach psychology, sociology, anthropology, et cetera, as standalone courses. So that just gives me something to think about. I appreciate particularly the clarification about sociology and anthropology. Like that made a lot of sense to me. You know, it kind of leaves psychology in a little bit different pocket, but I understand there's another praxis option for that if we would want to explore that at some point. So it's helpful information. Thank you.
Okay. And then the second question around civics. The civics section was expanded to acknowledge a more modern approach to civics instruction and new supplemental standards like the College Career and Civics Life Framework for Social Studies State Standards, which focus on enhancing social studies rigor and building opportunities for critical thinking, problem solving, and participation skills. Whereas the content of the previous assessment more heavily assessed basic knowledge about the structures and roles of government and relevant historical changes to the Constitution, the new blueprint allows for the knowledge and skills assessment of individual participatory action, taking informed action, the roles of groups and institutions in civic life. In addition, this new section provides more measurement of the roles of economic factors in civic decision-making processes and legislation. So that was the increase that you saw from the weightings from the current test to the new test.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So be when we go ahead and open it up. What did I do? Oh, I didn't. Smarter this time. So we're now to the action items on our agenda. Action item 1 is the recommendation to replace social studies content knowledge 5081 with social studies 5581. We would probably also want to make a recommendation on a cut score, even though that'll be the board's decision. We still can make a recommendation. I'll just leave it out there because someone would need to make a motion if they want this to be the next step. Yes.
Doug Arnold, I move that we accept the recommendation to replace social studies content knowledge 5081 with social studies content knowledge 5581 with the recommended cut score of 153. 153.
Any discussion? Did you make the official?
Yeah, who made the motion? Who seconded? Motion's been made and properly seconded to accept the recommendation to replace social studies content knowledge 5081 with social studies 5581 with the recommended cut score of 153. Hearing no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, like sign? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
And our second item and last item is the recommendation for the 2024-2025 ABTEL meeting dates. I will remind you that though we choose those today, they can be amended as needed as we go out through the year, but this will allow us to do planning and find location and make sure that we don't have any other major conflicts and give you at least a basis for planning for yourself going forward. I'm going to go ahead and put those dates back up just so you can see them again.
Kim Halterman again. I am anticipating board meetings, like school board meetings on almost all of those dates, which is a little bit challenging. Of
Yep.
course, that's my scheduling consideration. I could probably make it work, but we want folks to know.
Are your board meetings on Mondays?
Mondays, typically the third Mondays. Yes, sir.
Can definitely be suggested that we don't go with these. These are just the recommendations. Anybody else have any concerns or?
The other thing I was just gonna throw out there is that April the 21st,
Mhm.
is the day after Easter.
Just like today, yeah.
And with our
Mhm.
barely meeting the forum, I was worried that they could change that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We can change that. You want to look at those dates? Okay. This is our last ABTEL meeting though, so we would need at least a meeting date for September. Or else we don't have a meeting date set and approved. Yep. As of right now, it's still here, but there's not a contract in place.
I think I would prefer to keep our meetings on the first Monday. See some head nodding, so first Mondays.
Is the first Monday in September also Labor Day weekend?
Yep.
Mhm. And the first Monday in January, is that coming back from New Year's, right, real quick? We can make any dates we want.
That's what
We just have to all agree. Well, not even all. Have to, the majority of you have to agree.
So September 23rd, September 9th. Would be the. And then November. Would be November the 4th, that's the day before election.
Mhm. Maybe you're seeing a little bit of the reason why we didn't go with the first, just because there are some conflicts there as well.
January would be January 13th. Excuse me, January 6th.
6th.
And then March would be March the 3rd. And then it would be April the 7th.
Do you all think that November 4th is a dangerous date? Based on elections? The next one would be the 11th. Would that be the next Monday?
It would be the 11th would be the next Monday.
And we have at times had these on Thursdays, but then we have to run into the danger of state board meetings.
Yeah, and if we go with the 11th, that is Veterans Day,
Mhm.
which is a state holiday.
Mhm.
So the better-
November's a tough month for us.
4th is
And the last one is probably Thanksgiving.
the 18th runs
Oh,
the
you
week
go
of
to the
Thanksgiving.
Mhm. It is possible to go October or December, but unless we go early December, we run into people on winter break.
There's not one.
The 3rd is election day.
No, the 4th is the day before election.
Okay, so the 5th is election day.
5th is election.
Does anybody want to make a suggestion?
The dates you were discussing, is that the second Monday or?
September 9th is the second Monday. November 4th is the first Monday. January 6th would be the first Monday. March 3rd, first Monday. April 7th, I think would be the first Monday or. Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, what were the conflicts with the second?
November 11th is Veterans Day. I don't know that there was any other major conflicts on the second.
Because all the dates that were provided were actually the 3rd.
Mhm.
And we typically, as a board, met on the first Monday. I think Kim would prefer the first Monday.
First and third.
And September was the only one, I guess, that wasn't the first,
Mhm.
and that's because of Labor Day. So it would be the second, and then all the rest would be the first. If these dates were the ones you all wanted to go with.
One more time.
September 9th, November 4th, January 6th, March 3rd, and April 7th. Would be on the 5th of November. Yeah.
No, 4. I think a lot of schools are being closed the Monday and Tuesday. Correct.
Mhm.
So all those dates sound fine to me with the exception. Speaking for me personally, that I'm up for reelection. So I might be busy that morning.
Mhm.
So if we were to move that to the 11th.
That's Veterans Day. And then the 18th is the actual week of Thanksgiving.
We could shift it to a non-Monday.
Thanksgiving's off.
That is true.
November 18th works.
And no, that date in advance, I can actually play with that, so it's a 6 date. That's gonna be the third Monday, correct?
That's correct.
So we would go September 9, November 18, January 6, March 3rd, April 7th. That would be the adjusted. Anybody more discussion on that before somebody makes a motion?
That'll be good.
I'm good.
Need somebody to make a motion. We say them again?
Andy Cox motion to approve 2024, 2025 schedule is proposed.
That would be,
As amended.
any more discussion?
If I understand this correctly, is that we get back here in fall. If we see something, we could make some changes, but I guess with venues, it would have to be sooner than later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless we choose a virtual meeting. Virtual meetings are much easier to arrange.
So a motion's been made and properly seconded to accept the 2024-2025 ABTEL meeting dates as amended to Monday, September the 9th, November 18th, January the 6th, March the 3rd, and April the 7th. Hearing no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, like sign? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
So we already did our one liaison report that actually is going to happen today. So you can take over with the announcements and discussion, and I will go check on the food. Monica said she didn't want to, she didn't feel good. And then you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it is with pleasure that I bring to you at this time announcements and any discussion that you might have. Microphone. Right, it's on. It's right in front of Kim.
Ron Ramsey, just wondering, the issue that was brought up earlier by public input, is there going to be any further exploration about the theater praxis?
At this time, that will be moved into our fall meeting, but I know that within the department, there will be conversation. Any other announcements or discussion at this time? Okay, hearing none, please note that following adjournment, we will not have the standing committee meetings. Rob, did you still want to have the topic discussions?
I just had them up there for people to send me information. I added the reading specialist, micro credential, in case people wanted things to discuss with me throughout the summer. They wanted to send it to me direct.
Okay. Any other discussion? And I would make the assumption that lunch is ready. Fantastic. So ladies and gentlemen, it's about 11:14, about to be 11:15. And that takes us to our meeting adjournment for today. That does require a motion and a second.
Ron Ramsey, motion. Second.
So the motion's been made and properly seconded. I don't think it's arguable or debatable. However, it's been a very refreshing year. For our folks that are new to the board, I hope you enjoyed your experience and that you're eager to come back in the fall and join us with a new group of folks that continue to do the good work within our organization. And thank you to Rob and your team for leading our efforts. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed to vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, like sign. Your ABTEL 2023-2024 year stands adjourned. Yay. Don't know how.
I don't even know. I'm going to shut everything down.
Well, sometimes it would let me do it, but sometimes it wasn't. I don't know. Let's just roll on.
Not getting done. Yeah. Fast conferences, I have no idea if that's for